Good evening. Lovely to see everyone. And I'd like to welcome everyone who's online tonight. My name's Councillor Corinna Smart. I'm chair of the committee, and we'll now move on swiftly. Apologies for absence, Wendy.
I've got Councillor Emma Garrawell and Tony Lukey.
Thank you. Declarations of interest under the Town Planning Code of Practice or any other communications from members. I think I better put this in now. Item 7, which is the call-in on, oh, it's not 140, sorry, 172, 174 Wood Lane. It's not happening tonight. It's deferred until, under Chair's action, until the 3rd of March, because the councillor is involved with work tonight, I'm afraid, and didn't know, unfortunately, in time to do anything about that. So that will wait. So that one is not happening. Okay, so everyone's happy with that. Now, obviously we've had some literature about Crane Bank. Yeah, and there's basically, I haven't had any communications about very much at all. I don't know if anyone has. So would you like to declare any interest tonight? If anyone has had any? Doesn't look like it. Well, yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's a pecuniary interest any longer, Richard. Much as it might have been. Okay. Well, yeah, I think we're okay on that one. Minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of January 2022. I'm assuming you've all read them. I hope that you're happy with them as an accurate record. Are there any matters arising from those? No. Okay. I'm just checking whether there was something or not. I think we're okay, aren't we? Are we all right? Matthew? Was there anything matters arising? No, we're okay. All right then. Okay, so thank you very much for that. I'll sign those as a true record, Wendy. Thank you. Okay, moving on. We have no speakers tonight. We have no objectors tonight, so therefore there will be no developers or applicants for planning permission speaking either. So, yeah, well, that's about another issue. Not anything on tonight's programme. So, moving on, we'll go to 7 to 12, the Dell Feltham, which is pages 11 to 39. There is an addendum, and there are some of which I have read, but I haven't got one in front of me, so I'm not sure what pages they are. No, I'm all right, Mel. I think I've got one here. When I read them, there wasn't very... Whoops. I do apologise. Yes, there is a page. Yes, page 2 and 3. Okay, for the Dell. Okay, so Matthew.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Matthew Rees. I'm the Head of Development Management, and I will be presenting 2 of the 3 items tonight. So starting off on the Dell, I'll get the site plan up on the screen first of all. So we're in the Feltham North Ward. This is just off Harlington Road East. The site contains a block of 8 garages. Just orientating you a little bit, we're just to the north of the Feltham Assembly Halls. It's Climping Drive to the south, as you can see there, and then just to the west of the site is Helen Avenue. This is a proposal for a 3-storey building containing 3 times 2 bedroom homes, all of which are 100% affordable rent. Just to give you a bit of an idea of the site and surrounding area, you can see that the Dell itself has got the large block, which is numbers 1 to 12 Dell, which is 3 stories in height, and then the surrounding area, it's broadly 2-story semi-detached dwellings. And then just a few pictures I'll run through. So you're looking at the existing block in a Dell there. So we're looking down towards the garages which form the application site, the garages on the application site, This is looking, garage is just to the right of that picture, and then you're looking at the block, which is 1 to 12 the dell there, the side wall of it. I'll just quickly note that there's no side-facing windows in that wall. And some closer view of the garages. Again, 1 to 12 the dell building. Again, same building, but this is to the rear of it. And then I'll linger slightly on this one because it gives you a fair idea of what we're looking at. So this is site 1, as you can see it on this picture. You'll see that there is a site 2, which does have planning approval. That was approved under delegated powers, I think a couple of months ago. So that was 2 new homes. So this is where the 3 new homes are going. It's not attached to the side of 1 to 12 the dell. There is a short separation distance there, but you can see that it does project to the rear of the property, and then hopefully you can get a sense of how far it is set away from properties on neighbouring streets. Again, this is a view back west from the Harlingston Road West area, East area. This is the ground floor plan. You'll note the access road there, and then the floor plans of the buildings itself. And as I say, this is a 3 times 2 bedroom flats. And then a picture of the elevations. So I am going to flick back to the site plan because there's no one speaking tonight. But the key, there were 11 letters of rejection, and that's the reason it's before you tonight. Concerns over design of the scheme, impact on neighbours, and then loss of parking was one of the largest issues with residents. I'm going to tentatively suggest. So they've demolished 8 garages. You can't quite see it very well, but there are some white outlines where 6 parking places would be scattered around the access road. So we've secured these 6 parking spaces, which still allows for refuse vehicles to turn, delivery trucks to turn at the end of that road. So there would be a loss of 8 garages, and they would be placed with 6 open parking spaces. Otherwise, obviously, it's an affordable housing scheme which weighs heavily in its favour. We don't believe it's having a significant impact on neighbouring amenities, except on design grounds. It hits amenity space standards. And a sustainable scheme, 90% reduction over building regulations, no gas boilers. That's the reason we're recommending approval of the application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Matthew. Okay, so questions of the officer. I can see a few people. Okay, so I'll take Mel first, please.
Yeah, the picture, even for me, so I'm not quite sure what it's like for you, Chair, but doesn't actually give you a very good description of how close it is to anything that's outside of the scheme. So that's my first question. Second question is, of the 6 parking spaces that you're providing, will there be any spaces for blue badge holders? The third question is, can you tell me what the access is inside of the building to get from the bottom to the top story in order so that it's accessible properly for people with disabilities? And as this is being built on an existing site, can you tell me if there's any space there for additional soft landscaping so that it becomes a little bit more picturesque rather than being bleak house?
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So it is approximately 2 meters away from the side wall of the existing block. So when you look at that plan, there is an annotation. Sorry, again, too small for you. You know, you can see that. Apologies, but that distance is 2 meters. So if you take that 2 meters as a benchmark, then the distances between this property and neighbouring dwellings is in excess of 10 meters. There's no habitable rooms that are facing into habitable rooms. The properties to the west are more than 21 meters away. So we're suggesting that there isn't harm to neighbours due to any loss of light or outlook. In terms of parking, do you want to take the parking question, Kieran? Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah. In terms of blue badge parking spaces for development of this scale, the London plan doesn't require blue badge spaces to be provided. It's only on developments of 10 or more units. However, the parking spaces the general parking spaces would be located on the public highway. So if somebody, a blue badge holder, needed a blue badge space, then it could be converted to one in the normal manner.
Mel, please, questions only at the moment. You can come back if you want to make comments later. Okay, Councillor Samia Chowdhury. Yeah, sorry. Okay, don't worry. Matthew, there's a couple of questions you didn't finish. Okay, enough, please, people.
Yeah,
Matthew?
there are a couple of questions. Apologies. So first of all, there is no. I mean, there's not really much scope because the application site is quite constrained to get more green space on there. Again, looking at the plan, it's essentially it's road. The trees are off the site. The trees are retained, and then they have done soft landscaping to the sides of those properties. So that's I'm afraid that's the best they can manage at this point. And then the units at, so the ground floor unit is obviously designed to be wheelchair accessible with level access. The first floor units have got the ability to be wheelchair accessible, but I do not believe that they're accessible via lift. It's a 3-story building, and so there's the opportunity for them to be future retail adaptable, but at this point, no, that they're not.
Right, Councillor Samia Chowdhury.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Matthew. Just a couple of quick questions. As I think all of us know, in Waltham North, near Assembly Hall and the surrounding areas, roads are pretty much fully packed with the parking during the weekend and otherwise as well. I know the point has been one of the questions has been already answered about the blue badge holders. As you have said, they can apply later if they want to for the blue badge, and then we can put the blue disabled parking bay there. But only one thing I just wanted to know before, have we done any assessment on this before at the moment how many cars are parked there? Because I think we're giving 6 parking spaces, as you've said, but has there been more car park? The people who are already living there, how many cars used to be parked there or still parking there? Thank you.
Yeah, so in parking surveys were undertaken in the surrounding area in the using the standard methodology. It is very highly stressed in terms of parking, and at the end where the building is proposed to go, it was found overnight there were 5 cars parked there. So this proposal will retain 6 spaces to accommodate the 5 cars that were found to park there overnight, plus the additional demand that is anticipated from this development.
Thank you. So it's just front of the garages, you're saying the 5 cars used to be parked, but we're giving 1 more parking space, yeah?
That's correct, yeah. So when the garages are demolished, they'll make more room for those 5 spaces to be retained plus 1.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Richard Foote.
To make mine a question, would Matthew and Kieran agree with me that in most of the garages that are around these days are far too small for a modern car and are in fact being used for storage? So any demolition that we may be making would not in fact be putting more cars outside to be parked. That in fact most of those garages have just, like my garage, I couldn't get a car, I couldn't get a bike in my garage.
Yeah, yes, I tend to agree. Also, it's important to note in this case, of the 8 garages, only 2 are currently let, and I suspect they are used for anything but actually parking of a car. Yes, there'd be little to no displaced parking from the loss of the garages. However, the building will be built on an area that people potentially could have used for parking, but because they're retaining the 5+1 spaces, which is found to accommodate the overnight parking at that location, then there will be minimal change.
Thank you. Councillor Vikram Gurul.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Matthew and team, for the presentation. 2 questions from me. One, which is, I'm sure I'm not alone in this. I'm sure my other colleagues get this, about height of developments in heavy residential areas. For example, say there's like these have semi-detached houses, so there'll be 2 floors, possibly a loft conversion here and there. How does the privacy element I've seen that you have written 7.4 to 7.52 or something, or 7.72, 7.52, sorry, on 5.1 on page 5. But how are we tackling this? Because I can see other areas of Feltham where there are 2-story buildings, whether it's houses or whatever, and we're seeing 7, 8, 9-story flats of this nature or development. So how are we dealing with that privacy element of it? And in this instance, I know it's only 3, but it'd be good to hear on that. And then the second thing about social infrastructure, a doctor in Feltham has actually reached out to me recently where he's put a planning application to extend his practice purely to meet demand of Feltham as an area. So how will this development impact social infrastructure, so schools, GPs, roads more generally? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I think hopefully I've addressed the design point about it's not appearing out of character in terms of the actual scale of it, because it's next to a 3-story building and they've used a hipped roof to try and reduce the profile. In terms of impact on neighbours, specifically privacy, there's various techniques that we can use. In this particular case, they've orientated the building just by virtue of the site on this occasion to make sure that it's not directly looking into any habitable rooms of neighbouring properties. And then you can obscure glazed windows is one way of doing about it. Then you can have balconies with privacy screens around them, which is another way about it. When it really does become constrained, then there's all kinds of, I don't want to, design solutions, I'll call them. So you can have windows that are angled to only face out in certain directions. You can have louvres installed to make sure that you can only see out in certain directions. So there's all kinds of design solutions that can be done, and we have used them and presented them in committee before. But I think on this occasion, just the way the building's designed, so it's not overlooking from balconies, and the windows don't directly look into other windows, has been an effective design solution on this occasion. In terms of the impact on infrastructure, because this is 3 houses and because it's affordable housing, then they wouldn't have to pay community infrastructure levy. And I'm sorry, I know I've given this answer before, but I appreciate sometimes it's the cart leading the horse, but the community infrastructure levy is what you would use to offset harm from these developments in terms of capacity of the infrastructure in the area. It's a much larger project and it's independent to the applications that we look at, but that's the intent, is that would follow that the money that is given to the community infrastructure levy throughout the whole Feltham area is then invested into this area. So that's the planning solution to that particular issue.
Oh, sorry, Councillor John Todd.
I just want to clarify that answer. Who's the cart and who's the horse?
So yeah, you give approval for the properties and then they give you money, and then you use the money to spend on infrastructure, as opposed to spend it on infrastructure then build the house, get approval for the houses.
Just about to go, would like some comments, and you're going to move recommendation. That's lovely, thank you. Thank you very much. And Councillor Guy Lambert, is this comment?
I had a question actually.
Oh, right. I didn't, but that's...
you may have mentioned this when I wasn't paying attention, but there's another site in the Dell, which is garages. What's happening to that?
So that has planning approval. So there was garages. It's site 2, as you see behind you, and yeah, that got planning approval. There wasn't the same level of objection, so that was done under delegated power. So there is planning approval. Because it's been approved and not constructed, there's limited way that no way that you can really afford it to your decision making with this planning application. Apologies for that. But it's fair to say that we have looked at the cumulative impact anyway in terms of impact on parking, which is possibly the key issue there. Sorry to put you on the spot, Kieran.
No, that's fine. In terms of the garages, one of the garages was let, but that was let to a person that was in excess of 200 meters away from the site. So it's unlikely that they would have used it for parking. So we don't have a concern there.
Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to comments. So I'll call Councillor John Todd, who indicated first.
No comments. I recommend the approval, Chair, subject to my colleagues.
That's been moved and it's seconded by Councillor Gary Guru. Okay. Okay, so we have approval on the table. Can I see all those in favour? Could you please show? That's all. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Beg your pardon. 719 to 727 London Road. That's pages 40 to 78 of your main agenda, and then pages 2 to 5 on your addendum. Okay, so Again, we have no speakers, so I'm going to move on to and welcome our planning officer, Nathan.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm Nathan Ringer. I'm the planning officer for the council dealing with this application. So the application seeks permission for the demolition of the existing vacant building and the erection of a 3 to 10-story building comprised of 55 dwellings. The subject site is a former Ford car dealership located at the junction of London Road and Bridge Road to the east of Hounslow Town Centre within the Hounslow Central Ward. The site is bound by London Road and Bridge Road to the north and east, to the south by the residential properties on both Bridge Road and Alderwick Drive, and to the west by 729 London Road. To the northeast of the site, on the opposite side of London Road, is 1 to 94 Silchester Apartments, a 5 to 10-story flat building. The 10th-story element of the proposal would be positioned to the northeast corner of the site and would then be stepped down towards the centre of the site and neighbouring properties. The building would be set in by 9 to 14 metres from the southern site boundary and 10 metres from the western site boundary, with the 1,060 square metres of communal amenity space positioned to the south and west of the site with children's play space facilities as well as on the roof space. The principle of the development is acceptable as the existing use of the subject property is sui generis and is not protected by any relevant policies. The proposal would also comply with the relevant policies in terms of the quality of accommodation, impacts on neighbouring properties, design and transport. The separation distances from the neighbouring property and position of the proposal would ensure there's no unacceptable sense of enclosure, loss of outlook, privacy, light or noise. The design would also be of high quality and would significantly enhance the appearance of the subject site and would also act as a key wayfinding element, enhancing the permeability of the area. The proposal would achieve a carbon reduction of 50% above Part L of the building regulations for the use of air source heat pumps, MHVR ventilation systems and PV panels. This would require a £78,800 carbon offset payment to achieve net zero carbon. The proposal would also have an urban greening factor score of 0.4 and would not result in the loss of any trees, with 267 to be planted. Of the proposed 55 dwellings, 11 would be affordable, equating to 20% of the overall dwelling numbers, and would be comprised of 4 3-bedroom 4-person dwellings and 3 3-bedroom 5-person dwellings at London affordable rent, as well as 2 1-bedroom 2-person and 2 2-bedroom 4-person dwellings at shared ownership. The original affordable housing offer was for 6 dwellings, and BPS independently reviewed this and confirmed that 6 dwellings would represent the maximal reasonable offer based on the current viability of the scheme. Notwithstanding this, further discussions were held with the applicant to increase the offer, and it was subsequently increased to 11 homes. Both London Plan Policy H5 and Local Plan Policy SE2 state that the applicants must demonstrate that affordable housing offer has been maximised based on the outcome of the viability statements. In this case, it was considered that this would be the maximum offer that could be viably provided on the site. The provision of larger family dwellings as London affordable rent also adds to the weight of the acceptability of this provision. Should the application be recommended for approval, early and late stage reviews would be attached to the S106 agreement to further review the viability of the scheme against market conditions, and the application is therefore recommended for approval subject to conditions and obligations.
Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, questions now. I can see Councillor Alan Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair. And hello, Nathan. We had a brief chat this afternoon. I was very grateful for that. There's just 2 questions. I just want to be clear on this. I'm sure you know the way this committee thinks in terms of affordable housing, and our targets of 40, 50%. We're talking 20 here, 20% in 55 units, isn't it? Even with your erudite description of the some of those, I'm still not clear that I'm surprised it's come to planning like this. Am I missing something? Given that this committee is quite clear in what its aim is when it comes to affordable housing. And secondly, with these 55 units, there will be motor vehicles and there will be displacement, as we discussed earlier. Could you just clarify what consultation went on with the residents in Pears Road, further up Bridge Road, just before you get into the bridge, because they are not in a CPZ and they will get the displacement if this goes ahead like that? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So to answer your first question, the policy states that we do have to base affordable housing assessment against the viability statements. So as I said, BPS did review the initial statement and they confirmed that the scheme could only viably provide 6 dwellings. So following on from discussions, they did increase that. Hence, this is why it's considered the maximal reasonable affordable housing offer. I understand that is exactly what I said in my speech. So I understand if you don't appreciate that answer. Then to answer your second question, all of the residents on Pears Road were notified of the proposal. And I don't believe we did have any response from the Pear Road residents directly, particularly with regards to the parking. As we discussed on the phone earlier today, there was that future residents wouldn't be eligible for any parking permit, so they wouldn't be able to park on the nearby CPZs. But you are correct that Pears Road isn't within that. I think if I could ask Kieran to comment on the displaced parking levels.
Councillor John Todd, please.
Yeah, well, there'll be no displaced parking because it's currently being used as garages and showroom. But in terms of the streets outside the CPZ, obviously that's something that is always under review. And if Pears Road residents at that end of Pears Road decided they wanted a CPZ, that's something we could look into. But the London plan also does say that the absence of CPZ controls in accessible locations such as this should be no excuse for not pursuing a car-free development.
Okay, right. I've got, right, hold on a second. I've got Councillor Richard Foote.
Sorry, can I have a quick supplementary? Sorry. Sorry, Chair.
Sorry, Alan. Yes, carry on.
Yeah, by displacement, Kieran, I meant the vehicles that will come with the 55 units and the people living in them, obviously. That will have an impact on Pears Road. I'm not sure it's going to be popular, but I take issue with this viability and 20%. This isn't a small development, it's 55 units. And again, I must reiterate, whatever criteria it passes, as you've described, Nathan, I'm left in severe doubt about it tonight because of
Okay,
what we're here for.
Right,
Thanks.
Alan. I've got a member of the viability crew here, so they can come and please explain to us. It's okay. It was a question. It was a question that was raised earlier, and I did mention it at call-in, so that's why we've got them here. Okay.
Good evening, councillors. My name's Caroline Jones, Affordable Housing. In terms of the viability, our independent consultant looks at the financial viability that is sent in by the developer, and they have assessed it and they have agreed with the figures presented that the minimum, the first offer of 6 units was in excess of what was viable for the scheme. However, there were further negotiations and it was increased to 20%. What I would say about the units they're providing, whilst the amount is not what we would like, the size of the units they are 3-bed units, and 5 of the 6 will be provided as wheelchair accessible units. So it does enhance what they're offering, but it doesn't increase the number. But we are not able to ask for anything further.
Okay. Right. Can you keep that for your comments? I suspect. Is that okay? Okay. Any further questions for our officers, please? I have now Councillor Richard Foote. I have a number of you, so I'll go through you all one by one.
Right, yeah, can I'm not sure if I caught you right, but I think you said that heating for this site will be by heat pumps. Is this air heat pumps or ground heat pumps? Air source heat pumps. My understanding is that these are mainly generated by electricity. Is that correct?
I believe so.
In that case, is there any reason why we haven't put any panels on the roof to generate solar panels to generate electricity?
There are PV panels proposed on the roof.
There are.
The original submission had only half of the 10th-story roof face with PV panels, but that was subsequently increased, and the whole of the 10th-story roof does include PVs.
You're looking in my inbox. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Samia Chowdhury.
Thank you, Chair. One of my questions already been answered, but just a quick one to say, do you know with the 55 units, we are basically saying no, even disabled parking?
So 2 blue badge spaces would be provided. So whilst most residents couldn't get one, there would be 2 blue badge spaces.
So will they have to apply for that space?
Yes, I believe that would be the case, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Mel Collins.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I shall leave my affordable housing bit to comments. I think that'll be the easiest. The thing that troubles me mostly about this site, apart from affordable housing, is the actual way that the design of the site has been proposed by putting the highest bit towards the town centre and it going away from. Because we have some just along the road from here, just on the other side of Alderwick Drive, and I haven't heard you mention that you've consulted Alderwick Drive. I presume you have. But we have some beautiful Victorian houses there. I know you can come back to me and say that there was a scheme to actually redevelop that site. Well, it didn't happen, so they're still there. And I don't think any cognizance has been taken into account at all. The other thing is that this is going to impact the complex.
Question, please, Councillor Mel Collins.
Yeah, the question is there, Chair, as why has the high bit of the site been put at that northeast
Fine,
corner
that's great.
and not further back. But I'm trying to give a picture as to why I've asked the question.
Thank you, Councillor. So to address the first point on the consultation, yes, all of the Alderwick Drive properties were consulted. And then in terms of the design, the proposal has gone through multiple pre-application advices as well as a Hounslow design review panel. In addition to this, the site is also noted in the context and character study that a tall building on this site could be acceptable in order to act as a wayfinding into the town centre. Hence the reason that the 10 stories was supported on the site.
Okay, Councillor John Todd.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd like to recall the charming lady who deals with whatever you're called, viability. Sounds a bit cheap. Yeah,
It's affordable housing.
she must have a name. So very nice to meet you. Yeah, I want to ask you the hard questions, I'm afraid. Viability is to do with money, not design or aesthetics. Does anyone, well, that's a flippant start to the question, yeah. We only have 40%, as my colleague said, and that's a clear rule when it goes across London. Yeah. What reasons do you accept, did you accept, to take 20%? What financial reasons? What was the open question?
Thank you, Councillor. The reasoning behind the acceptance is the developer has to produce the financial elements of his build in terms of his fees and his construction costs and what he can reasonably look to sell or to rent the units for. Yeah, and our consultant looks at that independently and decides whether or not the figures that they've put forward for those things are reasonable. And they have concluded that the figures presented are reasonable for this level of construction in this particular place.
Just supplementary, if I could. It's a very open site. It's a former car showroom. There's nothing of complexity. If the church who was rebuilt down in Brentford, there was terribly complex construction with bricks and various historical buildings. But what reason what was the additional cost that made it so penal in affordable housing terms?
I'm not aware that there was any outstanding points within the financial assessment, but the overall cost of the construction of this at this site has come out as a reasonable cost for the proposed development and the provision of affordable housing. Unfortunately, is not viable within the construction.
Okay, but I mean, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but you can't say to me the figure should have been X and Y.
I can't.
I mean, we know there's an agreed profit margin.
Yes.
And so you accepted the report, I'm not saying in any critical way, blindly. There's no challenge. It's simply a report from a third party who says it passes a test. Is that correct?
It's not blindly accepted, no. The financial review document is sent to an independent, well-respected consultant that we use on virtually all of our developments to review this. And they have concluded that the figures produced are acceptable in today's world.
Can I add a right? I'm not a professional in any way, but I think if I commission someone to do it, I'd want a paragraph to say my reason is because of X, Y, and Z. There is construction cost, there's whatever. And in the absence of it, I can't see how you can justify 20%.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, can we have Matthew? Have you got a comment to make on that? Thank you very much. Matthew?
Sorry, Councillors, I'll just add to that. First thing I'll say is that 40%, I know it's difficult to say this to everyone around this table, isn't necessarily, it's our starting point. The starting point is viability. We have to ensure that 40% is viable or people aren't going to build houses. Viability runs through the whole planning system. So that, in essence, trumps the need for affordable housing. Sorry, I know it's not an easy thing to hear. With your specific question, Councillor, I think the problem, it's not, there's no dark arts to this situation. It's a reasonably straightforward calculation that you take the existing use value, they compare different sites, you add a premium to that existing use value, and then you mirror that to a standard building cost for these buildings, the profit margin and the sell costs. So the nuance comes to establishing what that existing use value is and how much you would make from these properties. It's a car showroom, and I know it's not in use at the moment, but that does have an existing value, which is more than you'd have from just any site. They didn't put a premium on this because I don't think that they think there's a huge amount behind the to reflect the fact that it's not an existing showroom. There's probably going to be difficult selling it, but it does have that existing land value, and that is the existing value that's causing the issues here. And to be perfectly honest, I know we want 40%, but we rarely actually do get a viable 40% scheme for schemes of this scale. It's usually to do with negotiations and agreements with registered social landlords that get you up to that 40% figure. This isn't unusual for a site like this, I don't think. I'm going to tentatively suggest that. So I know you've seen them before, but we generally get viability assessments like this. And then just add, you've pointed out that they get a profit margin. In this case, it's a 17.5% profit margin. They've eaten into that to give us those extra 5 units, was it? Sorry, extra 5 affordable rented units. So they've eaten into their own profit margin to give us this scheme. So that's the reason it's got that positive recommendation tonight.
Okay, right, that's okay. You can come back with your comments in a second. Okay, Councillor Rajinder.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, again, viability. So you're saying that it's not viable to give 40%, it's viable to give 11 units. So nothing in this agenda shows me anything comparable. You're asking us to reduce from 40 to 20, and we are not experts. We are not economists or builders. So there should be something in the agenda which proves your point. Why it's not in the agenda?
So we rely on saying it's been independently reviewed by BPS. There is a report that's meant to, so there's a viability report that is publicised online. There's a lot of sensitive information in that document, so you wouldn't necessarily put it in a committee report. But yeah, I acknowledge we do rely on the fact that the figures, the sums, the profit margins are within this report, but they are in there. They're on the file, and they're obviously being key to our decision making. Our recommendation in this case.
Like,
Okay, right
can I
now.
raise a point of order on that, Chair, with respect? My understanding is, Mr. Rees, that viability of reports were public documents, and we agreed that some time ago.
You did, and it is. So it's on the online case file. We don't allow confidential viability assessments anymore. So they're there for anyone to view who may wish to do so.
Yeah, there may be other information that's confidential on those files, but that's why it's not in the report. But the viability should be, I suspect. Anyway, right. I've probably done the questions to death, and I think we're now going to move on to Councillor Guy Lambert.
I'm moving into comments.
Comments, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
I realised that's what you were waving at me for. So that's why, because you haven't
Right.
spoken, I called you first on the comments.
So, although actually, I think I've got a question. The question is, you mentioned the design panel. What did they say? Because as far as I can see, there's nothing in the report about it.
No, you're correct. There isn't a specific reference to what they said in the report. The gist of it is that once the design review panel came in, that was after some of the pre-apps and design had been developed. One particular point that can be seen on the elevations there and the massing model is the chamfer along Bridge Road that sets back some of the massing from that side of the site. That was one of the key parts of that review panel. And was subsequently implemented.
So what was their view? Because we've certainly had officers coming here and saying the design review panel say it's wonderful and you must approve it because it's so beautiful. And now you're not saying anything. So I imagine they said it's horrible and you shouldn't approve it.
No, I don't think it was that explicit, but they did give some changes with regards to the landscaping. And as I said, the massing of that element, that was the key takeaway from the review panel.
I do want to make.
I thought you might. Would you like to carry on with your comment, and then I'll come back to other people who do want to make comments as well.
So my first comment is, it says here, the London Plan Policy relates to affordable housing and states that the strategic target is 50% of all new homes to be affordable. So I don't agree with you, Matthew, that we start from viability. We don't. We've had this argument over years in this planning committee. We start from 40% or 50%, and if we can't squeeze the developer to get to 40% or 50% because they've overpaid for the land or whatever, or they've come up with a scheme that isn't sufficiently cunning to get to the requirement, then we might go into viability and concede something, but I really don't agree that. I must say that I think the first thing on the list is we want 40-50% affordable housing. So I just want to make that comment and that point. So I'm not happy about this site having a very low level of affordable housing. I don't think it's very beautiful. I think it's probably excessively sized, and I think it's a pretty ugly, blocky sort of thing. I'm looking at the picture on the screen.
You're saying massing? Well, we'll come back to that in a minute. Okay, fine. Okay, thank you for those comments. Right. Okay, now, Councillor Vikram Viral.
Thank you, Chair. Just to carry on what Councillor Lambert said in terms of the price the developers paid for the ex-car showroom, that was very much their prerogative. No one forced them to pay that. So why we should take a hit on our affordable housing target is how it has an impact on that. I mean, I don't think that's really acceptable. I think our team do a great job, our planning team, to squeeze as many affordable units as possible. But in this instance, I think we've fallen short. In terms of the viability of selling units, I see this as prime real estate. It's a stone throw away from our high street, Hounslow High Street, from the bus garage, walking distance from tube stations, from train stations, near a hospital. I could go on, plenty of schools. So, I mean, I can imagine, especially some of those higher units. I appreciate the point that it might not be the prettiest, but I can see some units that would sell for quite a lot, especially those ones at the top. So seeing a breakdown in those calculations would be helpful from a economic perspective and for us to assess the viability. I'm not saying that we don't trust it, but I think we need to do better than 20% or 11 units. And this committee's been quite good on that front, where we've looked at that first and foremost, and then everything else when we're assessing applications. So I think we have fallen short here, and it's something to consider.
Councillor Mel Collins.
Thank you, Chair. I'm with my colleague, Councillor Guy, on the way that this scheme has been put together, and I'm troubled there. And you said that we might come back to that in a minute, and I hope we do, because it's not the best selling point since sliced bread at all. However, I'm going back, if I may, to the affordable housing. To quote the House of Commons the other day, I think we've just been taken as fools because we haven't got 20% affordable housing at all. We've actually got 12% plus the decimal points because there are only 7 affordable rents or London living rents, which is actually quite high. But nevertheless, they are counted as affordable housing. But as Aunt Sally's, once again, we're being dragged into the mire with affordable housing being shared ownership. So the developer is not only getting his 2 penny worth out of the 44 units that he can sell, or she, or they, but they're also getting a percentage of the shared ownership money coming into their coffers as well. So if we're talking figures here tonight on affordable housing, which is what we actually want and need, we're actually only looking at 7 units here and not 11 at all. And 11 is only 20%, which is what we've been dangled as being the viable thing. I think that it's a great pity that we didn't have the housing report prior to the previous planning committee, but we didn't, and so we've got to live with that. However, what I don't want this committee in its dying embers before any elections, I don't want us to be dangled out there as silly old fools that have accepted approximately 12% of affordable housing, because that's what it is.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm just looking around the room. Does somebody want to do something? I'm looking. Councillor Gary Gurul.
Yeah, Chair, after listening to the comments of the planning officer, I'm not convinced with the viability situation until unless I see the report. And based on that, I would move it for refusal.
Okay, have I got a seconder for that, please? Right, okay, Councillor Mel Collins. So I have refusal on the table. Okay, can I see all those in favour of refusal, please? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10. Okay, those against? 1. Yeah, and abstentions? 2. Okay. Okay, so that has been refused. Right, now we need reasons. Okay. I mean, some of the stuff that's come out was also within that. I know people are mostly concerned about the affordable part and the whole kind of situation of viability on sale, which I picked up from Councillor Victor Gruhl. I don't know how we phrase that, but I do also think we should be looking at the design and the massing particularly. It's been mentioned 3 times now that the larger element is on the London Road, on the high in the entrance to, if you like, Hounslow town centre. And I noticed a couple of people said that they didn't like it being there. But I think also there were also some people mentioning the fact they didn't like. I mean, design is subjective, but I know that a number of people mentioned that. So that's massing. And anything else, please? Anything else? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. If it's okay, just to clarify a few things. So in terms of the design, I've taken a few notes. I won't repeat what have been said, but broadly it looks like there's been comments about just the general design not being in accordance with the character of the area, and then too tall has been used as a reason. So we have a tall buildings policy which talks about the design of tall buildings. So I think broadly there's policy CC1, CC2 and CC3 deal with those three particular issues, but we would wrap it up into one design reason for refusal. I've spoken about viability, but obviously members have made it clear that that they choose to refuse on the grounds of viability. Yeah, so that's it. That seems to be pretty clear. So.
Okay, right. Okay, then. So everyone is clear why we refused it. I think everyone was clear. I was just making sure it's wrapped up. Okay, okay, people, we're now going to move on to the final item, well, almost the final item on our agenda. Okay, so we have Building 3, Bedfont Lakes New Square, Bedfont, which is pages 79 to 102. And there is a small addendum somewhere. I think it's the last page or the last bits of pages. Oh, I beg your pardon, it's more than that. It's 6 to 9. Okay, so over to Matthew, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Sorry, I'm just finishing writing my notes from the last one. Excuse me. No, sorry, no, it moved on quickly. Yeah, I know there's no speakers, so I'm trying to keep up. But I'll keep it really brief anyway. So this is 3 New Square. Sorry, just south of the Clockhouse roundabout, north of Bedfont Lakes. What I'm showing on the screen at the moment is the existing building and then the proposed building. So what you can see is that there's an extra floor being put on the building. There's the external building is being recladded. There is a single-story pavilion proposed at the ground floor to the rear, as you can possibly see there. And then there's these 2 they're called energy modules to either side of the building. Essentially, what's happened is that this building is not serving the purpose of the occupier, so they want to put an extra floor on there. And to go in hand with that, they're renovating the building. It's to modernise it and bring it in accordance with what they're hoping for, and then improving the space with the single-story rear pavilion building. It's only in front of you tonight. There's no objections. It's before you tonight because we need your authority to secure the Section 107, carbon offset fund contribution. So it is a sustainable building. The problem that they've been having is that they can't get it to the standards we generally expect for a new building because it's a 3rd floor. It's on the roof of an existing building, which doesn't meet those standards in the first place. But they have provided notes to demonstrate that they've made steps in terms of the carbon efficiency as in the third story to as best as possible achieve a sustainable building. So on that basis, we're recommending approval. And if so, I'll leave it to questions now.
Okay, has anyone got any questions? Okay, so there's no questions.
As they're putting an extra layer on top there, is that going to be a flat roof, please, Matthew? And if it is, does it lend itself to PVs or solar panels, should I say?
Yes, it does, and yes, it does. So they're installing 65 PV on the roof. 65 solar PV panels on the roof.
Okay. Okay, so we'll move into comments, but before I do, I'm just going to say one small thing, which I, as chair, oddly enough, I can say, despite other people thinking I can't. I can say what I like. So I'm just going to say, I think it's so cleverly designed that you almost don't notice that it's an extra bit. And I would love if other architects would take hint on that and actually have those kinds of designs. So that's the reason I want to make a comment, is because I actually think it's so nice to actually be able to see a building that's had an extra layer put on it that you almost don't notice. So that's okay. So Councillor Gary Guru.
Chair, your comments are appreciated and we move it for approval.
And Councillor Harleen Atwell, you're seconding? Okay, so you got that, Wendy? Okay, can I see all those in favour? That's all. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's been approved. Now, we have a update report, pages 118 to 120, Matthew.
So yeah, that's just to know if possible. Happy to take any questions on those statistics in there though.
Yeah, just in case anyone wants to say anything or anything. Nothing? Just noted. Thank you very much. Okay, so there is no other business which I consider urgent. The date of the next meeting is the 3rd of March. Okay. Now, also, we have a second meeting in March because obviously we enter PERDA. Now, because PERDA is in fact going to be officially the 23rd of March, we have moved our planning meeting to the Monday, the 21st. So instead of it being Thursday, the 24th, which unfortunately is banging, well, it's into PERDA, we've moved it onto the Monday, the 21st of March. Okay, are you all happy with that? Thank you. Okay, so, and at, oh gosh, haven't even got to 8 o'clock. Okay, so thank you all for coming. Thank you for your attendance and your considerations, and have a good evening.